Hello, TCI family and Jonathan's Refuge. It's your bishop coming to you today. It's always an honor, a pleasure. It's my passion to do what we do for a living. I don't even get paid for it, which is why I love doing it. Matter of fact, I actually am excited even more today because I have a special guest sitting next to me. And that, of course, those that know, this is Miss Heather Sorensen. And Miss Heather is not only one of my best friends, but she's also one of the leaders in our organization at GCS and TCI, and secretary treasurer and director of our therapy programs, our BHA, and um, she loves the people that we work with passionately. I've never met someone other than me that actually is okay working 18, 20-hour days doing what we do for no money barely and smiling, loving it, and doing it. So, you guys, we're really honored today to have her with us. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Miss Heather's the message. You guys know the drill. We always get into it. Oh, and our faithful followers from around the globe. Love y'all. Thank you for those in Ghana. There's a house in Ghana, for those that don't know, that actually broadcasts the show, and then they have about 20 people that watch it out there. Ghana is a place where I was knighted in the kingdom there by the king, and it was a real honor. It was for our humanitarian efforts of what we do right here, and so it's actually one of my. I've been knighted. I thought this would be my third time being knighted, but it's actually probably one of my favorite knighthoods because of the cause and helping people that are really in need. I don't mean to pick on America. I love our country, but there's so many people here that are like, I really need a taco tonight. I need a pizza. Do you know I had to eat ramen noodles? And I had to sleep in my car that had heat and air conditioning. And my friends in Ghana are trying to figure out how to get their son to be okay after he got his hand chopped off by the machete from the people who tried to, kill him, and then they just yacked his hand off. So it puts everything in a little perspective when you start to go to other parts of the world and see different people. And so I have a big heart for Ghana and areas like that. But let's do a little different tonight. So tonight I'm a little scared. I've got an inquisitor next to me, and I'm going to be asked questions. I do have a hint of what we're going to be talking about, but other than that, it's going to be one question that I know of. Anything else, it's going to be off the cuff, off the hip, shooting. And she has a big gun, so I'm afraid. Miss Heather, go ahead.
So, one of the stories that I have heard Jonathan speak about is when you were younger, you had met a man that was a drunk man, and the influence that he had on who you are now and today. And I would like to hear a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. So we're going back. Wow. So this is back to, I confused. I'm either 6 or I'm 8, and I'm almost positive I'm 6, but it could be 8. Okay. So if somehow later you're like, dude, you said you were 6, I could have been 8. It's in between. I was either before the Reading Church that my dad had or after the Reading Church, and I don't really remember which one. But I'll work that out eventually. Unfortunately, my father's passed, so I don't have an ability to just, hey, And I did call my birth mother, who I don't have a very close relationship with, but we still talk as parents and children do for holidays and things. And she can't remember either. She's getting up there in her 70s, or close to 80 actually. But anyways, this is in a town called Willow Creek, California. If you've ever heard me talk about Willow Creek, it's my favorite year of my life with my family as a child. So from 18 backwards, my favorite year was Willow Creek, California. The name might sound familiar. Willow Creek was burned. The whole town of Paradise and next that burned, and then Willow Creek was burning, but they didn't burn all of it. And unfortunately, my dad's church, the country church, actually burned down, ironically. And there's a new one now, a little further up the road, not too far, like a mile up the road. My father was an Assemblies of God pastor, and he was a very successful minister. He had 2 of the largest churches in the country at this point in his career, and he just left one, or it was just before he took his second one. And I can't remember if it was before or right after, but it was The reason it's my favorite place is that my father was a very powerful man. He worked for 2 presidents. He was one of the largest pastors of churches in America. This guy, was the who's who kind of thing. And so I never got to see him that much. And I kind of missed my pops. And we were fishermen. That's what we did. We fished. I joke because Heather's son, Ronan, is a fisherman. And, when someone tells me they're a fisherman, I'm like, hey, I'm a fisherman too. And Ronan's like, yeah, you're not a fisherman. He's like, so what do you use? And he named things. And I'm like, I didn't even know what the heck's he talking about?
He definitely educated you.
I went to Cabela's with them and I'm like walking through the store and I'm like, hey, so the fish guy, I'm like, tell the fish guy what you need and then he'll tell us what we got to get. So he tells the fish guy, and the fish guy looks at me and he goes, Ronan's 12, and he goes, so when this kid, assuming he's my son, he goes, when your son turns 15, would you mind bringing him back in? I will hire him to help run the fish department because he knows more about what he wants than I even know about fishing. So he looks at me and goes, son, why don't you take your pops and go ahead and start buying what you need? and he just walked me through it. I'm like, he looked at me and he goes, I thought you said you fished. And I was like, listen, little man, you still got to get home. So unless you want to walk and you don't know how to get there, you might want to be nice. When I fished, it was just a fishing pole, which at Willow Creek was literally a Mickey Mouse fishing pole with the little, and of course, Ronan knows the name of every kind of reel and rod, but this is the reels that have like a cover and a little string coming out of it. And then it's the rinky dink one. And then my dad had an ugly stick with a really fancy reel that I couldn't tell you, but Ronan would know because he knows those things. And he's like, so I'm trying to explain this to him. And he's like, okay, well, what kind of line did you use? And I'm like, the kind that wound up and went out. He's like, all right, how about your gear? And I'm like, what do you mean gear? He's like, well, what's on the end? And I was like, oh, we just used a hook and a worm. And he's like, okay. He's like, fishing has changed. I felt so outdated and old. But this was the place that every morning my dad wanted a break. And so he took a church that had 6 people in it. And the 6 people doubled the church. My father had 6 of us. So literally he doubled the church. And that year at the conference, he won the church with the 100% growth in America, which he didn't even go. He didn't even go to receive the award. He's like, I am not going to be the guy that shows up to get that one. So, Pastor, how did you do that? I popped out 4 kids and got married and doubled the church. But he just wanted to break from all the hoopla. So we were so poor. Now hear this. Here's how poor I was. We had no food. Every morning, my father and me, the church was on the banks at Willow Creek. And you walk down this bank, which as a kid, I thought it was 30 feet, 40 feet down. When I went back as an adult, it was embarrassing. It was like 3 feet. Yeah, I was like, pretty sure this was like 30 feet up. I guess for a 6-year-old,
everything's always bigger.
And so you would walk to the water every morning, my father and me, and we fished. And whatever we caught was what we ate. And if we didn't catch anything, we didn't eat. We had no food. So in the summer times, there's berries and things in the woods. My mother and 3 sisters would all go and forage the forest. And so that's kind of how we survived. And I had the greatest time of my life. I was homeschooled that year. I swam every inch of that creek all the way down, all the way up. I could tell you every rock on the bottom of it because most of it you could walk across the Willow Creek. There's some places maybe it was 6 feet deep at most. I mean, of course, in the melt off and stuff, yes, it would, roar down. But once that was done, Willow Creek was a beautiful place. And it was just like paradise. I had my dad every morning. We had this little church. We had an old lady and her husband. That was one couple. So that's 2 of the 6. We had the town drunk. There was 3. And I just can't remember the other 3. I really don't have a great memory of who they were. So this is a place that many things happened. One of them was, I always tell the story, I was crucified like Christ. I know. You're like, what? No, seriously, I was crucified like Christ with the cross. And y'all don't understand what he went through with the whole nails through. I do. I was crucified. Do you hear me? I was crucified like Christ.
We need an explanation.
Okay. So we were in seminary at Oral Roberts University, and they're like, so the professor's telling us how nobody understands what it's like to be crucified on a cross. And none of you people even understand the pain of a nail. And I just went, I've been crucified on a cross. And of course, he's like, of course you have, Mr. Brown. I was the troublemaker in seminary, if you're wondering. And he's like, so please enlighten us. So I was, that year, I was like 6, and it's Easter, and we finished the little thing that Dad made. It was a cross, and it had the nails and some cloth and a little blood-looking, stuff, and it was supposed to symbolize Christ dying on the cross, and it was in the church. Well, when we were done, put it on the side of the church, but the cross fell over. So when I was walking back to the house, I stepped on the cross with the nail, and it went right through my foot and all the way up. So I was crucified as Christ. So I'm probably one of the few people that could say that in modern time history. I'm just saying.
I mean, I'll allow it.
So that stuff like that happened. A bird died. There was a bird that flew in, and we were nursing it, and it died, and it was very traumatizing to me. It was the first death, I think, that I ever witnessed, or it was a loss of life, I guess you'd call it. But then there was an instance, and I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I was, you guys, most of y'all know I've got many names, right? My name's Jonathan. Most people call me, my friends call me JB, but my close friends call me Rev. And so the Rev came from Reverend. And of course, I'm a 4th generational preacher, which means my daddy's 4 generations of people. And they assume you're going to be a preacher, but at that time I was going to be a president, man. I wanted to run the world. I thought I was going to take and, kind of do like Trump. I'll just take over the whole world and we'll just call it all America. And then we're all one world. But God had other plans in store. So what happened was my dad left town for a conference in the church, and my mom and sisters and me were home. We had a little trailer, and the town drunk showed up, and he showed up every weekend, always on either a Friday or the Saturday night. He would get drunk, and then he'd wander across the bridge from the downtown, take the turn and then go to the end. The church building was there. There's a big oak tree. Then behind it was the little trailer that had 2 bedrooms, Mom and Dad's room, the girls' room, and my 3 sisters lived in that. And it's about 10 feet by 10 feet, if that, probably 10 by 7. And then I slept on the couch, and I heard the drunk, and he's out there, my mom. And of course, she's got girls and a baby or a young boy. And so I said, let me take care of it. I got this. I am a man of God with the power of God in me. And my dad preached a sermon about how God's in me. And I'm all like, I am a man of God with the power of God. I can do this. And usually it was always just to go over and say, look, I need you to leave, and we'll see you at church on Sunday. Go sober up. And this guy, he was a Native American who just alcohol ravaged him. And I walked out, and it was cold, and I had a blanket and a pillow. And unfortunately, I had a habit of doing this as a kid. And I walked over and I gave him my blanket and my pillow. And he was shocked. He's like, not even your dad's ever done that. And I said, well, you're somebody's son. And my mom loves me. And when she finds out I gave you my pillow and my blanket, she's going to be not upset, but she's going to be like, we can't go buy you another pillow and blanket. And of course, my reply when she told me that, I was like, no problem. I'll just go sleep in Dad's side of the bed. Pops wasn't too excited when he got home and had to find a way to buy me a blanket and a pillow, because we really couldn't even afford those. I mean, you're talking about people who lived off of the land and not planting. I mean, she had a small garden, but we had to catch our fish, freeze it for the times, and we fished every day, every week. Now, I loved it. To me, it wasn't a chore. It was an honor and a pleasure. And for that year, I sat down next to my father on those riverbanks, and I was taught life for 12 months. And my dad taught me everything he thinks I needed to know for 12 months. That was my moment where I was with my father. So for me, it was this moment to be a big man, even though I was just a little boy, and protect my mom and my sisters. Mm-hmm. But it was right then that I realized I wanted to be a minister. That was the moment I knew I wanted to help people, because I helped this guy. My ability, I don't know what it was. I really don't. I think if I've analyzed it years and years later, I think it's a shock factor, because if you read the title, it said, look on the inside God looks on the inside. Don't look on the outside and look at all the shit on the outside, because there's a lot of shit on us, right? I'm all tatted up, and if you start asking questions, what's that mean? What's this mean? I can start pulling my clothes off. They're all over. We have an outside image, and if you're a bum on the street, you're homeless, you're that crazy guy walking down the street, screaming at people. That's all the shit, the drama that's on the outside. You gotta look past that. And I never saw him as the town drunk. I saw him as somebody's boy, just like me. Now he was an old man, an older man, but he was still someone's son. Some mother birthed that child. Some mother went through. I don't know of any. I don't hear too many 9-hour labors. I always hear 20 or 65. I had 65 hours birthday to you. I hear Miss Heather say all the time, "You ruined me. You owe me." So
I mean, it's payback.
but somebody, had this child. Some father was involved in the process momentarily, but was involved. There's a question like, how do you touch that person? And the guy was so touched by the whole blanket pillow thing. And it was nothing big to me. I just knew right then I wanted to do something. But it wasn't fully until I found out what happened. He got sober.
So from that day forward, he was sober?
From that day forward, he was sober. He wasn't the town drunk anymore. People still said, "Hey, it's the town drunk." They literally called him like, "Hey, what's up?" And they'd call him the town drunk. "Oh, it's the town drunk. Man, come on, you want a beer?" "Nope, I'll take a soda pop." He still ate it. Same. There was only one tavern in town. It was a small Willow Creek. If you drive through it now, it's still a tiny little town. But if you went back then, it was really tiny. And I mean, the church was the biggest thing in town, and it was only like 10 pews and 12 people. So do the math. Tiny little place. But here's this guy who was a drunk, and that's all he did. He just drank every problem away, stayed drunk, stayed medicated, hide the pain, don't deal with it, numb yourself. And a little child gave him a blanket and a pillow. And he thought that was like so amazing. They would sober himself up. But then flash forward years later, I found out from my old man that he took him aside that week too and said, "You do understand that little boy is still without a pillow and blanket." And he tried to give it back to my father. And my dad said, "My son won't take that back from you." And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Nope." So my son, when we used to do the parks where we had a church, he started a church in Orange County, Anaheim, by Disneyland. And it was built up to 2,500 people like that. The old man, he just knew how to do it. And one of the things they did was they fed people, but they only had one plate for enough. That was it. It wasn't like lots of food. You got one plate. And I took my plate every time, and I looked around the parks, because in Southern California, there's big parks, and there's thousands of people, and they don't have a lot of places, so the parks are filled. And you just look, and you'll see there's a section always where there's just crazies. They're and half naked and ripping their clothes off, and they're tore, and they're screaming, and people just big circles go around, right? That was my people. So as a little boy at 4 years old, I would just take my plate, walk right over, and sure enough, I'd find the craziest ones screaming, and I'd just look up, and they're screaming at me, going nuts. And then I'd just say, "Do you want my food?" And they'd stop screaming. And I would say, "I just want you to know that God loves you, and so do I." Hand of food, and I walk away. My mom would be like, "Honey, we don't have any more." And I'm like, "I'm okay. I can afford to lose a little fat." I mean, I didn't have any fat on me. I think I could pinch like a quarter of an inch. But my point was, my father explained that to this man. So I believe, my personal belief is that, and this is just me, I believe that God has an ability. See, God, I don't believe God's a puppet master. God doesn't say, "So you're going to have your child killed today so that you can be a testimony down the road." God doesn't do that at all. What God does is allows you and me to be the miracle. So for that man, God didn't pop down and say, "Hello, down drunk." Oh, that sobered me up, man. I'm telling you right now, you get a big light from the sky, and a dude comes up and says, "Oh, hello, I am God." Yes, sir. What's up? Yep, I'll be sober the rest of my life. Absolutely. Doesn't work that way. It takes God's love in a person.
That act of kindness.
And doing an act of kindness. And that's God using us, because God can prompt. There's things that prompt you. And it prompted me. I saw a man in the weather, in the elements, and he's cold. I had a pillow and I had a blanket. And in my opinion, I had clothes, even though I think I had like 3 pairs of like shirts, 3 jeans, 3 socks, and mine were hand-me-downs from my sisters. So it's not like that's how poor I'm talking. We were poor, and I saw someone worse than me, and I could meet the need as a little boy. So that's why I became a minister.
Wow.
That's the story. I changed my careers, as you know, and then I went down the road at 12 years old and became a big gangster and ran one of the largest drug rings. And then I became a mobster, and then accelerated and went to the big leagues. When I got out of prison, and for those that don't know, I was from 12 years old until pretty much 20, 19 and a half. And I made such an impact in the mob that I'm one of the few people that actually get to walk away and nobody says a thing or could say a thing, because I'm the guy that, well, you just can't, I'm the guy you can't mess with. And they didn't. And I walked. But why did I leave? That's the question. So I got out of prison and I went to a cabin that my birth father owned, and I was hiding for 6 months. I was still running an entire state for the Irish, but I was hiding because I didn't want to do this anymore. I realized right in that last prison stint, it was a 2-year stint. I did one, got out for a year, needed to go back in, went back in for another year. And then I realized there's only 2 options for me. I take over the family, and that means I get rid of the boss. And now I'm the boss. That's cool, right? Not really, because the feds come after every boss nonstop. So you're eventually going to end up in prison. Or the next guy, me, is going to take you out. And if you don't think there's another badder guy than you, then you're an idiot. So there was death or prison as my options. And I'm a very intelligent person with a high IQ that just figured out real fast, this is a dead end road. So I'm spending my 6 months at this cabin trying to figure out everything. I'm the head of a family in the state, and my adopted mom brought me in, Mama Kelly, and she had a chair, and she asked me to sit, and I always sat right at her chair, and I put my head right on her knee. I just laid down and watched TV, and she just kind of just rubbed my hair a little, and I just sat there. And this time we talked, and Mama said, "When do I get that little boy back? When does the little boy that," and she referred back to that story, and she referred to 2 other simple stories that were similar later on after that example, and it just did it. I wanted to be that little boy.
So what do you think, just if you went to prison, if you wouldn't have been the mobster, if you wouldn't have been that person, do you think you'd be who you are right now?
No. I believe I still could have done great things.
Mhm.
I believe I still would have probably, I actually know I would have probably gone down the path of ministry and business, but my influence wouldn't be let me rephrase that. Let me rephrase that actually.
Mhm.
My influence would be different.
Mhm.
I went to seminary, and a lot of the pastors that I went with, we were kids, but now they're all pastors. So all those men and women, they pastor, and I know it's going to come off really bad. They pastor the goody tissues, the sweet people, the one that says, "Hey, I swore this week. I swore. I actually said, dang it. Okay." That's who my friends pastor. Now, listen, they need pastoring. Please, if you're that person, don't get upset at me. One of my good friends, she's almost 80, and God bless her. She calls me when she actually says she had a mean thought and she feels like she should seriously repent to God. And I'm like, "Oh no, what'd you do?" And she goes, "The trash man has purposely been knocking my trash can over." And I thought, boy, I would like to see what would happen if someone knocked his truck over. He got in a car wreck, and I think I'm the one to blame. And I'm like, "Oh my God, bless you. Those aren't the people that I'm here to reach." because I could have
Mhm.
had I been just a straight laced. And there's nothing wrong with my friends that are the straight laced. A lot easier life to go through than what I had to go through. So I sometimes wonder what that's like because they have a normal life and they have a house and cars and things and retirements and all that stuff, same as me and anyone. But
But what is
I went
normal?
through hell. Mostly, some of it, I would say 90% of it's by choice. Back in the beginning, I used to say it's all against my will, but it wasn't. I was not able to say where I could live because I was a child, and my parents put me in violent places because of what they did as a living. But I still had the choice, and I didn't see it as a child, so I chose the bad path and violence to protect myself. But now I couldn't help change the world the way I do. The monsters that I minister to, the cartel leaders that I minister to, the people that I've got. My dear friend, I don't even say his name anymore because he's in hiding, but well, not hiding, he's relocated, and he had over 200 executions where he chopped their heads off, hung them from the bridge over Juarez, reached up and pulled the dangling vines from their throat. And he would do that in front of my guys when I would bring them down to get the shipments of drugs to let them know what real sick, twisted people do. I had seen it and been around it so much that it that didn't bother me. I actually could have lunch with him literally right after he chopped a head off and yanked stuff out. I could sit down and have dinner while my guys are all puking on the side, barfing up. Now, what does that do for me? Nothing now, right? In some respect. But who I was, the monster I was, men in prison look at me a little different. They don't talk to me the way that some people do. There's a lot of respect because of what I used to be, not because necessarily what I am now, but my cred starts from then. Now they look at me and it's different, but it's the same little boy. I tell my director of Jonathan's Refuge, who's sitting here with us, I tell him, first thing I said, make sure you always tell the guys, hey, love you, buddy, as you leave. Just turn around and say, love you, buddy. Love you guys. You know, if you're not comfortable, say, I love you guys. I look at every one of my men and I say, I love you. And it just sometimes I've laughed and then I walk off. And then they go to usually the house manager of one of the refuges. They're like, hey, dude, is that guy gay? They're like, he has a tattoo that says coexist, so he must be gay. I'm a supporter, not a participator. That's probably going to get me in trouble too.
Hell.
I'm not PC, and if it offends
Now
you, you're not my people, and I don't care. So I would leave, and they'd be like, no, brother, JB or Rev, as they call me, no, our bishop is a man that really loves everybody. See, let me ask you this question. I'm going to end with this because I went a few minutes over. Why is it that it is so easy to hate people that you don't even know when it's so much harder to just love somebody as they are? See, you drive down the street and today they had a protest, and I don't agree with one thing that protest was saying. Not one thing. My own personal opinion, I'd be okay with taking my car and going, whoops, I had a heart attack, took out 10 of them. That's just my honest opinion. But guess what? Those people, they hate someone just because of a political disagreement. So they're a Democrat. The other guy's a Republican, or they're a Republican and they're a Democrat. And they hate each other. They don't even know each other. They don't even know anything about each other. And they hate. I have this belief, and this is what, and I don't care what any of you think or don't think. I've died 3 times. I've met God 3 times. It is not a God on a throne like you all think the Bible says. It is not the golden streets in heaven. There's none of that stuff. If you want to hear about the story, it's on the videos. Watch it. You can go back and find them. I talk about it all the time. Here's what I discovered when I first met God. I was a little boy when I drowned. And while they were trying to bring me back, I met this deity and this beautiful light. And I asked, what am I supposed to do? I know you think a little boy wouldn't ask those questions, but at 6 years old, my father made me in the summers go to conferences and be mentored by the world's greatest psychologists and ministers around the globe. Ministers, people like President Reagan, Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, and many others. So I wasn't a normal child. And I wanted to know, what am I supposed to do? And it was one word. Love. I shouldn't say one word. It was one sentence. Love all people. That's it. He didn't tell me to condemn anybody. She didn't tell me to condemn anybody. The deity said love all people. And that's what I've done my whole life. And I'm not perfect. I'm not, like I said, I would like to run over a few protesters today. But that's because I'm a human. I'm frail. But please hear this when I say this. Those protesters, I love them. I actually love them. I love the idiots who screw up this country and other countries. I love the man. Y'all know that I went to prison a long time, many times, and you guys have heard the story about me being brutally raped after having a stroke. I love the guy. He's dead now, but I loved him. I forgave him. I love all people. It's not easy to do that. Have someone rape you or beat you or do something to your child, and then tell me you can look at them and say I love you. Try that. Now, I'm telling you to try it because I've done it and I do it successfully day in and day out. Now, is it easy? No, it's hard as hell. It is the hardest thing I do sometimes, especially some knuckleheads. My God, I get them in our refuge all the time. But that's what we're here to do. Love all people. Guys, thanks for going. We went a little long. It was we try to keep these at 20 minutes, but it's a emotional one for me to go over today. I want to thank Miss Heather. Any other questions, Miss Heather?
No.
Any other thing? Anything you'd like to add to our group?
Not at this time.
This is her debut on TCI's channel. So it's kind of a big deal. I understand that most people, especially like Miss Heather.
I'm very nervous.
Well, no, I was going to say when they sit next to a celebrity like me, the amount of anxiety and, how can I, is it going to be easy to, I get it. It's okay. It's okay.
It's time for me to exit because it's getting deep.
It's getting big. Remember I said in the beginning.
There's not enough room in this room.
Remember I said in the beginning of the message, his title, it said, look past the shit. God bless you guys. We'll see you next week.